This is the 7th and last day of the November-December 94 7-day retreat in Springwater. As usual, we will read this morning from different spiritual teachers and poets. I apologize for the very, very slow rate of change in these readings. In some there is none, partly due to the fact that they are good as they are. And I have very little time to look for other things. Also, this makes it possible for us to change and hear it freshly. And it is amazing how it can work this way. Hearing something with new ears. And eyes and the whole thing. So we will start reading from the Zen teaching of Wang Po, translated by John Blofeld. This is not a complete rendition of Wang Po. I have eliminated words, sentences, and paragraphs to suit what we're talking about here. The word Buddha used by Wang Po does not just refer to Gautama Buddha, but it means an enlightened being or the absolute, unlimited, undivided. I've substituted some English words for Sanskrit words, like Dharma for the teaching, teaching for the Dharma. These things were written down about, I don't know when they were written down, but they were supposedly spoken about 1,000 years ago. There's now a controversy whether this was really Wang Po who said this or not someone else. What difference does it make? Written down by his disciple. The Master said to me, all the Buddhas and all sentient beings are nothing but the one mind, both capitalized, the one mind, beside which nothing exists. This mind, which is without beginning, is unborn and indestructible. It is not green nor yellow and has neither form nor appearance. It does not belong to the categories of things which exist or do not exist. Nor can it be thought of in terms of young or old. It is neither long nor short, big nor small, for it transcends all limits, all measures, names, traces, and comparisons. It is that which you see before you. Begin to reason about it and you at once fall into error. It is like the boundless void which cannot be fathomed or measured. The one mind alone is the Buddha, and there's no distinction between the Buddha and sentient beings, but that sentient beings are attached to forms and so seek externally for Buddhahood. By their very seeking, they lose it. By their very seeking, they lose it. For that is using the Buddha to seek for the Buddha, or using mind to grasp mind. Even though they do their utmost for a full eon, they will not be able to attain to it. They do not know that if they put a stop to conceptual thought and forget their anxiety, the Buddha will appear before them. For this mind is Buddha, and Buddha is all living beings. It is not the less for being manifested in ordinary beings, nor is it greater for being manifested in the Buddhas. Our original nature is, in the highest truth, devoid of any atom of objectivity. It is void, omnipresent, which means everywhere, which means right here. Omnipresent, silent, pure. It is glorious and mysterious, peaceful joy, and that is all. Enter deeply into it by awakening to it yourself. That which is before you is it, not just before you. It makes a separation again. So how can you put it into words? Within you? And this seems like something within and something without. So let's drop that division in thought. In all its fullness, utterly complete. There is naught beside. Even if you go through all the stages of progress toward Buddhahood one by one, when at last, in a single flash, you attain realization, you will only be realizing the nature which has been with you all the time. And by all the foregoing stages, you will have added to it nothing at all. You will come to look upon those eons of work and achievement as no better than unreal actions performed in a dream. This is why the Buddha said, I attained truly nothing from complete, unexcelled enlightenment. This is a dialogue between the disciple and Wang Po. Questioner, what is the way and how must it be followed? What is the way? This question was asked dozens of times in this retreat. What is the way? How must it be followed? What is the technique, the method, the tool? Give me a tool. What is it? And Huang Po responds, what sort of thing do you suppose the way to be that you would wish to follow it? Questioner, what instructions have the masters everywhere given for meditation practice and the study of the truth? Huang Po, words used to attract the dull of wit are not to be relied on. Questioner, if those teachings were meant for the dull-witted, I have yet to hear a truth that has been taught to those of really high capacity. Huang Po, if there are people of high capacity, where could they find people to follow? If they seek from within themselves, they will find nothing tangible. How much less can they find a teaching worthy of their attention elsewhere? Do not look to what is called the true teaching by preachers, for what sort of true teaching could that be? Questioner, if that is so, should we not seek for anything at all? Huang Po, by conceding this, you would save yourself a lot of mental effort. Questioner, but in this way everything would be eliminated. There cannot just be nothing. Huang Po, who called it nothing? Who was this fellow? But you wanted to seek for something. Questioner, since there is no need to seek, why do you also say that not everything is eliminated? In other words, the particular logical thinking says if there is nothing to seek, then there's nothing. Everything is eliminated. And a further thinking is, I have to eliminate that. Since there's no need to seek, the questioner says, why do you also say that not everything is eliminated? Wangpo, not to seek is to rest tranquil. Who told you to eliminate anything? Look at the void in front of your eyes. You could just say, look. No in front or in back. And what is void is everything. And everything is void. Meaning no permanent self-existence in anything, including ourselves. Everything one interrelated, interwoven, interchanging fabric. Look at the void in front of your eyes. How can you produce it or eliminate it? Questioner, do you mean we should not form concepts as human beings normally do? Wangpo, I have not prevented you from forming concepts. But concepts are related to the senses, and when feeling takes place and concepts are formed, wisdom is shut out. Questioner, then should we avoid any feeling in relation to the truth or true teaching? Wangpo says, where no feeling arises, who can say that you are right? Questioner, why do you speak as though I was mistaken in all the questions I've asked your reverence? Wangpo, you are a man who doesn't understand what is said to him. What is all this about being mistaken? See, our reaction is, am I doing wrong? Am I doing right? Does he approve of me? Instead of listening. Listening and looking at the same time. Then there's no question of mistake. It's just listening and either understanding or just listening to not understanding. Questioner, up to now you have refuted everything which has been said. You have done nothing to point out the truth to us or the true teaching. Wangpo, in truth there is no confusion. But you produce confusion by such questions. What sort of true teaching can you go seeking for? Question. Since the confusion arises from my question, what will your reverence's answer be? Wangpo, 1,000 years ago, observe things as they are. And don't pay attention to other people. There are some people just like mad dogs barking at everything that moves, even barking when the wind stirs among the grass and leaves. Though others may talk of the way of the Buddhas as something to be reached by various pious practices and scripture study, you must have nothing to do with such ideas. A perception sudden as blinking that subject and object are one, a wholesome perception, undivided perception, will lead to a deeply mysterious, wordless understanding. And by this understanding you will awake to truth, to the truth. Your true nature is something never lost to you even in moments of delusion, nor is it gained at the moment of enlightenment. It depends on nothing and is attached to nothing. It is all-pervading, spotless beauty. It is the self-existent and uncreated absolute. It is a jewel beyond all price. So are we ready to seek for it? Here are two small sections from a compilation of Krishnamurti's talks and writings, edited, compiled by the annual gathering 1990 of the Krishnamurti Foundation in India. Here is a small section that was published in the Star Bulletin, that was the Theosophical publication, 1932. I'll first read the one above, also a short section, Ojai 1940. I personally feel that the world is myself, that what I do creates either peace or sorrow in the world that is myself. And as long as I do not understand myself, I cannot bring peace to the world. This was right in the midst of the war. So my immediate concern is myself. Not selfishly, not merely to alter myself in order to gain greater happiness, greater sensations, greater successes. For as long as I do not understand myself, I must live in pain and sorrow and cannot discover peace and happiness. And 1932, the individual problem is the world problem. If the individual has found happiness, has created order within himself or herself, then she will create order in the world around him or her. And in helping others to solve their own individual problems, he will help solve the world problems. You think that in seeking the liberation of the self, there is the suggestion of egotism. People mention it often to me. Friends and relatives or acquaintances says, it's very selfish what you're doing. Looking into yourself, going off onto a retreat. You think that in seeking liberation there is a suggestion of egotism. You think that to be happy is a selfish realization. You think that to be free from sorrow and strife is desertion of the world. This is a misconception. Liberation is the very antithesis of the sense of self, of I-ness. It is the ultimate realization for all people. And in 1955, from a talk in Bombay, someone asks, what is this self-knowledge of which you speak? How can I acquire it? Okay. It is very simple, sir. The first step is the last step in self-knowledge. The beginning is the end. The first step is what matters. Because self-knowledge is not something you learn from others, from another. No one can teach you self-knowledge. You have to find out for yourself. It must be your own discovery. And that discovery is not something tremendous, fantastic. It is very simple. After all, to know yourself is to watch your behavior, your words, what you do in your everyday relationships. That is all. Begin with that and you will see how extraordinarily difficult it is to be aware. Just to watch the manner of your behavior, the words you use to your servants, to your boss, the attitude you have with regard to people, to ideas, and to things. Just watch your thoughts, your motives in the mirror of relationship. And you will see, the moment you watch, you want to correct it. You say, this is good and that is bad. I must do this, but not that. When you see yourself in the mirror of relationship, your approach is one of condemnation or justification. Therefore, you distort what you see. Whereas, if you simply observe in that mirror your attitude with regard to people, to ideas, and to things, if you just see the fact without judgment, without condemnation or acceptance, then you will find that that very perception has its own action. That is the beginning of self-knowledge. A selection from Being and Becoming by Vimala Thakur, a woman teacher who is now living in India. She used to travel all over the world. These talks were given in Dalhousie in India during the summer of 1989. This is toward the end of the book. We are talking about an alternative way of living, which is a meditative way of living. Acquire knowledge, let it flow through you, let it be utilized in its relevant field without creating or without thought creating the knower or the possessor of knowledge. If we look at the roots of all human misery, we will find that misery is built upon our stupidity. We do not know how to relate to the social structures and use them without identification, without creating a sense of authority out of them. Structures are not sacred. It is only life that is sacred. Patterns have no sacredness, whether you create them in the name of religion, spirituality, or politics. It is the pattern-free, structure-free, virgin dynamism of life that is sacred, that is divine. Actually, life is not pattern-free, but what she means is the deliberate or constructed, thought-constructed patterns. Life is sacred, that is divine. Wherever you have touched it with thought, here it comes, you have manipulated it, you have structured it. It has a utility, but not sanctity. It has a utility, but no authority. Knowledge itself has no power to bind you. It is the creation of the knower that is the obstacle, or the possessor of knowledge. You have a beautiful, sensitive body, and the sensitivity gets in touch with respective objects outside, and they bring sensations. Sensations are converted back to electric impulses, and the brain interprets them. It is a marvelous process, what we call experiencing. Contact with the outside world through the senses, which are very delicate, very tender. It is quite hard and arduous work to keep the sensual system pure, healthy, supple, and elastic. Let the experiences flow through the sensual system. Nothing wrong in a sensual, sexual experience, but you create an experiencer and you get stuck in the experiencer and its likes and dislikes, its value structures, its preferences, its prejudices, its theories. If the sensual contact with objects is allowed to flow through you without creating the experiencer, then the limited human-made world cannot corrupt you. As the oneness of life manifesting itself into manyness does not get corrupted, does not lose its vitality, does not get mutilated. In the same way, you acquire knowledge and you appear as an individual playing the role of a father, a brother, a son, a mother, a child. You are one appearing as many. There's no need for identification with the fatherness, the sonness, the daughterness, the sisterness. And you don't tie so many knots inside, but play the roles sanely, completely, with the magnificence of an inner equipoise or equipoise. I don't know how to pronounce that. Then you're appearing as many, functioning as many. You're acquiring the knowledge of structures, and handling of structures shall not corrupt you. In other words, if there's awareness there, that's what she calls magnificent inner awareness. In the man-made world, one has to learn to let the knowledge flow without creating a knower, and let experiences take place without creating the experiencer. That is the way of meditative living. The word meditation has been identified with psychophysical exercises, with concentrations, methods, techniques, kundalini, shakti paths. The word has been abused and misused in such a callous way. No authority and no effort. Freedom from authority and freedom from the struggle of efforts. Once you know that these human-made enclosures are only to be lived in, then the sense of comparing yourself with others, he has a palace and I only have a hut, he has millions and I only have thousands. 1,000 rupees would probably be dollars here. The sense of comparison and ambition for competition disappears completely. One can never guarantee complete disappearance. Just let's take it a moment at a time. Your economic life becomes simple. No vanity, no pride about your scholarship, erudition, and so forth. And the social life becomes simple. You do not move around with a begging bowl for sympathy, for acceptance, for prestige, acknowledgement, and so forth. Reconciled to the limitations, to the enclosures, you live and move in it. Silence is not only sitting still, it is a way of living. Silence is inner unconditional freedom from the authority of the past, which means the past dominating automatically, unawares. Because the past or memory can be very helpful as an accessory. To remember how it was when one hurt someone, or when one ate too much, or drank too much. Or when one got all inflated about oneself, or all deflated about oneself. To see that now, and memory furnishes support. May or may not. Silence is unconditional freedom from effort, and therefore the alternative way of living. Meditation has no repetition at all. It is moment to moment. In the moment of relating, you are living. In the moment of aloneness, you are dying. It is living and dying, like inhaling and exhaling. To be alone is to die to the sense of being somebody or being something. Is not that the content of death and dying? Dying to the sense or an idea of being something or being somebody. To be alone is to die to the sense of being somebody, sinner, saint, holy, knowledgeable, respected, rich, poor, and so forth. To be alone is to die to being something according to the definition of society, according to the value structure of religions. Physically isolating yourself may not lead you to the aloneness. It may or it may not. That is what we are afraid of, dying to the sense of being somebody. Dying to all the images you have built up about yourself. That is being alone. The way we are tackling the theme may be unusual, unheard of to many. It is a non-conventional way, a non-traditional approach. But I'm really grateful that life brings you and me together. A chapter from I Am That by Nisargadatta, translated by Maurice Friedman. Nisargadatta died at the age of 84 in the early 80s. Questioner, and it's a dialogue. Maharaj, you're sitting in front of me and I am here at your feet. What is the basic difference between us? Nisargadatta, there is no basic difference. Questioner. Still, there must be some real difference. I come to you, you do not come to me. Nisargadatta, because you imagine differences, you go here and there in search of superior people. Questioner, you too are a superior person. You claim to know the real while I do not. Nisargadatta, did I ever tell you that you do not know and therefore you are inferior? Let those who invented such distinctions prove them. I do not claim to know what you do not. In fact, I know much less than you do. Questioner, your words are wise, your behavior noble, your grace is all-powerful. Nisargadatta, I know nothing about it all and see no difference between you and me. My life is a succession of events just like yours. Only I am detached and see the passing show as a passing show, while you stick to things and move along with them. Questioner, what made you so dispassionate? Nisargadatta, nothing in particular. It so happened that I trusted my guru. He told me I am nothing but myself, and I believed him. Trusting him, I behaved accordingly and ceased caring for what was not me nor mine. Just reading this, I trusted my guru. I remember one time a woman telling me with great almost ecstasy that she found a guru, a teacher. She didn't use that word guru. She said, I found a teacher. Finally, it took me so long. And now I am his disciple. And I said, what does that mean? What is that does that relationship mean? And she said, it means trusting him completely, hoping that he will be reasonable. It's a good principle to keep in mind and body. Here the questioner says, why were you so lucky to trust your teacher fully while our trust is nominal and verbal? Nisargadatta, who can say it just happened so? Things happen without cause and reason, and after all, what does it matter who is who? Your high opinion of me is your opinion only. Any moment you may change it. Why attach importance to opinions, even your own? Questioner, still you are different. Your mind seems to be always quiet and happy, and miracles happen around you. Nisargadatta, I know nothing about miracles, and I wonder whether nature admits exceptions to her laws, unless we agree that everything is a miracle. As to my mind, there's no such thing. There is consciousness in which everything takes place. It is quite obvious and within the experience of everybody. You just do not look carefully enough. Look well and see what I see. Questioner, what do you see? Nisargadatta, I see what you too could see, here and now, but for the wrong focus of your attention. You give no attention to yourself, and here self does not just mean the conditioned ego, me. The word self here is used in the same way as you give no attention to yourself. Let's just leave it this way. Your mind is with all things, people, and ideas, never with yourself. Bring yourself into focus. Become aware of your own existence. See how you function. Watch the motives and the results of your actions. Study the prison you have built around yourself by inadvertence. He doesn't say because of your own fault or because of your greed or your desire. He says by inadvertence, ignorance, unawareness. By knowing what you are not, you come to know yourself. By knowing what you are not, you come to know yourself. One thing is certain, the real is not imaginary. It is not a product of the mind or of the thinking mind. Once you are convinced that you cannot say truthfully about yourself anything except I am, and that nothing that can be pointed at can be yourself, you are no longer intent on verbalizing what you are. All you need is to get rid of the tendency to define yourself. All definitions apply to your body only and to its expressions. Once this obsession with the body goes, you will revert to your natural state spontaneously and effortlessly. The only difference between us is that I am aware of my natural state while you are bemused or confused. Just like gold made into ornaments has no advantage over gold dust, except when the mind makes it so, so we are one in being. Like gold dust, one in being. We differ only in appearances. We discover this by being earnest, by searching, inquiring, questioning daily and hourly, by giving one's life to this discovery. A few poems from One Robe, One Bowl, Zen poetry of Ryokan, translated by John Stevens. Usually I pick the poems that fit this season, but what is this season? Winter, summer, autumn, spring? One narrow path, he lived when? Do I have to know that? 1758 was when he was born. He was a hermit, lived in the mountains, sometimes came down to the village to beg food, play with children, and get sake, to get drunk. Stone steps, a mound of lustrous green moss. The wind carries the scent of cedar and pine. The rain has stopped, and it is beginning to clear. I call to the children as I walk to get some village sake. After drinking too much, I happily write these verses. Another year lingers to an end. Heaven sends a bitter frost. Fallen leaves cover the mountains, and there are no travelers to cast shadows on the path. Endless night. Dried leaves burn slowly in the hearth. Occasionally, the sound of freezing rain. Dizzy, I try to recall the past. Nothing here but dreams. Light sleep, the bane of old age. Dozing off, evening dreams, waking again. The fire in the hearth flickers. All night a steady rain pours off the banana tree. Now is the time I wish to share my feelings, but there is no one. The vicissitudes of this world are like the movements of the clouds. 50 years of life are nothing but one long dream. Sparse rain. In my desolate hermitage at night, quietly I clutch my robe and lean against the empty window. An evening dream. Everything must have been an illusion. I cannot explain clearly even one part of what I saw. Yet in the dream, it seemed as if the truth were in front of my eyes. This morning, awake, is it not the same dream? Lying on my grass pillow, dreaming about this world again. Lonely, fitful sleep. As I watch the children happily playing, without realizing it, my eyes fill with tears. Thinking about the people in this floating world far into the night, my sleeve is wet with tears. A thief has stolen my cushion and mat. Why did he break into my hermitage? The door is never locked. The night is ending, and I sit alone by the window. A sparse rain falls gently against the bamboo grove. The thief left it behind. The moon at the window. A few poems by Mary Oliver, a contemporary poet. This one is from House of Light. The others are from new and selected poems. The Notebook. 6 a.m. The small pond turtle lifts its head into the air like a green toe. It looks around. What it sees is the whole world swirling back from darkness. A red sun rising over the water, over the pines, and the wind lifting, and the water striders heading out, and the white lilies opening their happy bodies. The turtle doesn't have a word for any of it. The silky water, or the enormous blue morning, or the curious affair of its own body. On the shore, I am so busy scribbling and crossing out, I almost miss seeing him paddle away through the wet black forest. More and more the moments come to me. How much can the right word do? Now a few of the lilies are a faint flamingo inside their white hearts. And there's still time to let the last roses of the sunrise float down into my uplifted eyes. White owl flies into and out of the field. Coming down out of the freezing sky with its depth of light, like an angel or a Buddha with wings, it was beautiful and accurate, striking the snow and whatever was there with a force that left the imprint of the tips of its wings, 5 feet apart, and the grabbing thrust of its feet, and the indentation of what had been running through the white valleys of the snow. And then it rose gracefully and flew back to the frozen marshes to lurk there like a little lighthouse in the blue shadows. So I thought, maybe death isn't darkness after all, but so much light wrapping itself around us, as soft as feathers, that we're instantly weary of looking and shut our eyes, not without amazement, and let ourselves be carried as through the translucence of mica to the river that is without the least dapple or shadow, that is nothing but light, scalding aortal light, in which we are washed and washed out of our bones. When death comes like the hungry bear in autumn, when death comes and takes all the bright coins from his purse to buy me, and snaps the purse shut, when death comes like the measles pox, when death comes like an iceberg between the shoulder blades, I want to step through the door full of curiosity, wondering what is it going to be like, that cottage of darkness. And therefore, I look upon everything as a brotherhood and a sisterhood. And I look upon time as no more than an idea. And I consider eternity as another possibility. And I think of each life as a flower, as common as a field daisy, and as singular, and each name as comfortable music in the mouth, tending as all music does toward silence. And each body a lion of courage and something precious to the earth. When it's over, I want to say, all my life I was a bride married to amazement. I was the bridegroom taking the world into my arms. When it's over, I don't want to wonder if I have made of my life something particular and real. I don't want to find myself sighing and frightened or full of argument. I don't want to end up simply having visited this world. The sun. Have you ever seen anything in your life more wonderful than the way of the sun? No, than the way the sun every evening, relaxed and easy, floats toward the horizon and into the clouds or the hills or the rumpled sea and is gone. And how it slides again out of the blackness every morning on the other side of the world, like a red flower streaming upward on its heavenly oils. Say, on a morning in early summer, at its perfect imperial distance. And have you ever felt for anything such wild love? Do you think there's anywhere in any language a word billowing enough for the pleasure that fills you as the sun reaches out and as it warms you, as you stand there, empty-handed? Or have you too turned from this world? Or have you too gone crazy for power, for things? We will end here for today.